And we're live.
Jose just whispered sweet nothings in my ear, and what he whispered was actually a very important something, and that we're online here with Facebook. Welcome, Facebook folks, Facebook family, as I like to refer you to you as. Boy, I love your emails. Keep them coming. Love you when you tune in. We're just having a
20 seconds.
good time. 20 seconds before we go on radio. I'll be right back. From NFL quarterback to Hollywood to the mayor's office, and now behind the mic at KXEX, this is the Autry Show. No retreat.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody grabbing out there. Nobody. That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So, 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable. Triad land! Triad land! Thanks
on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX.
And welcome to Alan Autry No Retreat. I'm Alan Autry, and as always, I am so honored, humbled, excited, and every adjective you can think of to show my appreciation and joy that you've chosen to spend the next hour with me here on KXEX 1550, the best talk in town. Have you noticed that it seems like crime all over the country is out of control? Well, there's a pretty good reason for that, because it is out of control. And as the experts like to say, they have empirical quantitative data to prove so. 9 out of the 10 big cities in the country broke records this past year, or approached records for murders, gun violence, pretty much violent crimes of every sort. And we're no different here in Fresno and Clovis. It's something that has become, as I said, nationwide, reminiscent of the crime situation, the crime wave, the out-of-control crime that we experienced in the early 90s. And some of us remember that situation all too well. And we vowed through laws and commitment to one another, commitment to law enforcement, commitment to those responsible for putting away the bad actors, that we would never get in this situation again. Yet, here we are. And we're so happy to have with us and honored to have, I think, the best district attorney, not only in California, but in the country, in Lisa Smittcamp. And Lisa, welcome to the show. And I only chuckle because you're chuckling, because I truly believe that, you know, in this era, Lisa, where, or Madam DA, however you want to be referred to, you're pretty down home. So
I prefer Lisa, thank you.
Okay, well, you got Lisa. If you're like me, you can call me anything but late for dinner. But I want to tell you this: you are a phenomenon. You are a counterculture figure in law enforcement, and there's no, no bias. I'm very fond of Lisa Smittcamp. She's a great person, individual. But I'm looking at this and analyzing this purely from the standpoint of the district attorney's office and what is required of the district attorney, why we elect district attorneys, which is to keep law-abiding citizens safe from bad lawbreakers, in particular violent lawbreakers. It's as simple as that. So, Lisa, if you could, let's kind of examine where we are now from your perspective. I had Police Chief Kurt Fleming on yesterday, and he said he's never seen anything like this in terms of the confluence of negative forces coming at law enforcement, from recruitment problems to this defund the police, no cash bail stuff, just everything coming against law enforcement. How did we get where we are first? And, but where we are first. And then we'll take a step back and in your analysis and our discussion, how we got to where we are today. And then hopefully in our third part in this hour of what we can do to make it better, to stem this crisis in crime. There's no other way to put it. So first of all, give us your analysis of, is it as bad as the numbers say and people think that it is?
Yeah, I think we're definitely in a public safety crisis all over the state of California, and quite honestly, in many places across the nation. And, Alan, not to be an alarmist or somebody who's, overstating, we have a wave of anti-law enforcement, disrespect for law enforcement, disrespect for the law. We just have a wave of this going over our country. And part of the reason that it's so bad is we have all of, what I like to call these imposter DAs who are being funded by George Soros. And right now, in the nation, we have approximately 2,400 district attorneys in the nation, and 70 of them have been elected by funding from George Soros and his counterparts and these foundations. And they're in big cities. They're in San Francisco, Los Angeles. They're in Manhattan now, in Boston, Philadelphia. They're everywhere. They're
Chicago.
In New Orleans and oh yes, Kim Fox in Chicago is one of she is a public defender in disguise. And when the system is set off balance like that, it doesn't work. The system was designed for there to be a public prosecutor. Most counties, it's the district attorney is the chief law enforcement official in the geographic area, and then there are also public defenders, and there are also private defense attorneys, so that the rights of the defendants, the rights of the accused, are upheld. And it's a checks and balances system. And when you send that off kilter, and you have people who are focusing on the rights of defendants, they are not implementing the laws that have been established to create and maintain public safety. This is the result that you get. And in California, we have so many specific issues related to drugs and the lack of accountability and the lack of people who are willing to say that the greatest threat to our nation is substance abuse, because it trickles into every single area, into economy, public health, children, child abuse, domestic violence, shootings. It interferes with, it's the way that a lot of gang members make their money. So there's a lot of a competition between gang members, and oftentimes there are feuds over drug sales and all of those types of things. And, it leads to wherever you have illegal drug sales, you have guns, because they obviously can't call the police if they need to protect their inventory, and the gang members take those matters into their own hands. And so it shows an increase in gun crime and homicide and everything else. And it really all comes down to that root. So where we are is in a public safety crisis. And we have to start to take more stock in who we vote for, because if we keep passing these laws and electing these elected officials who refuse to pass laws that are promoting accountability and responsibility, and we have rogue prosecutors all over the nation, this is where we are, and this is how it's going to get worse if we don't change something.
So I think you've been very clear in what you just said. In unambiguous terms, you have come out and said that we're in a public safety crisis. And I'm like you, Lisa. I'm not an alarmist. I know words mean things. And if you cry fire so many times, or you call every situation in life a crisis, the term loses its importance and its power. But certain things fit the criteria. And that's certainly what's going on, because the numbers, right? At least they speak for themselves. A death recorded, a homicide, you can't say, well, that is just a spin by those public safety advocates that want to hire more cops or whatever, or want longer sentencing. I mean, it is, they say, to quote an old tired out cliche, it is what it is, clearly. Let me ask you this. I'm going to try to get into the head of George Soros might be kind of, a scary proposition. But I want to just ask you to just kind of, in your own opinion, what do you think they, meaning George Soros, these DAs who clearly have put criminals first, you see them doing everything they can to not only not deter crime, but really policies that encourage crime, the no cash bail, the early releases. What do you think their outcome, what do you think their goal is? It's so nonsensical, is what I'm saying. It makes no sense.
That's a problem, Alan, honestly, is that it's so hard to understand from a common sense or a logical perspective, that you have to look beyond that, because there is no common sense to it. There is no logic to it. And my take on it, and this is just my personal opinion, right, is that for the candidates and the people who are funded by Soros, it's a power play. It is all about power and prestige and position, because these are people who otherwise would never be able to get themselves, because of their ideologies or their lack of experience or their lack of just, abilities, just this plain skill. They would never be able to accomplish what they are able to accomplish when they are funded by him. So when they're funded by him and his movements, they become puppets. And so they're not in it for the reasons that you indicated that I am, right, is to promote public safety, to right, be a representative for victims of crime. And they are in it for themselves. They're in it for their own personal gain, right? And we could say that about a lot of politicians, I think, that we have in our nation and in our state today, right? So that's what it's about for the candidate.
So you think a lot of this is just pure blind ambition, being able? It's
just power. It's just power.
And money.
It's
when you say
able to, yeah. Well, they're all these district attorneys are all quote unquote, public employees. Their salaries are set by the county that they work in. But who knows what kind of kickbacks and other types of financial, gain they may get before they're in office, after they're in office, however that works. I don't know. But it's the power of the position, because when you are the district attorney, you have a tremendous amount of prosecutorial discretion. You have the right to say, if I wanted to come out and say, I'm not going to prosecute any more trespass cases, I'm not going to, this office doesn't have the resources to do petty thefts anymore, or possession of marijuana's not a crime anymore, of methamphetamine or cocaine, I have the discretion as the district attorney to do that. Now, I'm never going to do that, but other district attorneys do. So in California, for instance, we have George Gascon down in Los Angeles, who is saying that he is not going to allege certain gun enhancements. He is not going to ever seek the death penalty. He is not going to implement gang allegations, which are on the books for the most serious crimes and the most serious criminals, in order to remove them from society when they have proven over and over and over that they cannot behave in lawful and productive manners. So what happens is you get this, again, going back to this imbalance of power in the system, and you have these people who would otherwise, really never have the opportunity to have that type of powerful position be placed in these positions, and they don't make decisions based on public safety. They don't make decisions based on common sense. They make decisions based on the political ideology of the person funding their campaign. And that's where we are really coming into these dangerous times. And here's what gets a bee in Lisa Smittcamp's bonnet. Is these people, these candidates, if you will, who then become political officials, they purport to help impoverished Black, brown, uneducated, and immigrant families. That's their big claim to fame, is that they're there for these underserved populations. And guess what? They're hurting those populations. They are not helping them.
Hurting them the most. Correct? I mean,
they're hurting them the most.
I mean, they can't afford a gated community or a personal bodyguard.
Exactly right. You know, Alan, 10 years ago, I started a relationship lecturing at Fresno State to the men's basketball team and the men's football team. And out of that association I had, I became very close with a young man who was playing basketball. And that young man has become part of our family. And he is a son to me. He is a sibling to my children. And he is now, plays basketball overseas. And we're very close. And when he comes back to Fresno, I'm really the only mom he's ever known. And when he was playing basketball in Finland, all this defund the police stuff was going on. And he's African American. When he was a young boy, he was involved in gang life. He didn't have the best home life growing up. And he's very familiar with the streets. He's very familiar, and basketball was his way out. He came to Fresno State and got an opportunity to play ball over in the G League, and then still is playing overseas. And he has taught me so much about the African American community and African American culture and Black culture. And I called him on the phone and I said, Julian, what do you think about this defund the police stuff that's going on here at home? And he said to me in no uncertain terms, he said, Ma, this is bad for Black people. I said, why is that, son? And he said, because wealthy people are going to be able to afford to hire all these cops they fire as private security. Yeah. He said, and the people who are going to suffer are the people who live in the projects and the ghettos and the low-income neighborhoods, like all my family back home in Texas and all my friends. Yeah. Now, if that's not just, out of the mouths, I mean, he's not a babe, but out of the mouths of babes, right?
No.
Came right from him. This is not a kid who's savvy in the world of law enforcement and wasn't even living in the country. I just proposed this to him at the time. Yeah. And that's what he said.
And then go ahead, keep going. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, it's just sad because there are so many good people that live in, neighborhoods that are not wealthy neighborhoods, and they want the police there. They need the police there. They want their children to be able to walk home from school in a safe environment. And if you extract law enforcement, they don't have that.
Yeah, and I admire this young man because you know as well as I do, and most people listening out there, if a courageous Black individual stands up for law enforcement now, you become, in the eyes of George Soros and this whole woke far left, excuse me, and I won't even put in my liberal brethren. I just yearn for the good old days liberal. That this woke far left that's at work, the liberals would have never taken the comment that this young man said and called him the black face of white supremacy. That's what you get called nowadays. And to have the courage as a Black individual. So when you talk to him, for all it's worth, and I'm not saying it's worth much, tell him Alan Autry just respects him so much for just telling the truth and standing up, and he's influenced well. And we're going to take a break now. And, I think about this a lot, Lisa, like you're saying, it's what bothers me most is not that crazy runs for office. That's been the case since this country was founded. Crazy always runs for office. But when crazy gets elected, that's what concerns me. And I want to dive deeper into that, but also talk about Prop 47 when we come back. This is Alan Autry, No Retreat. We're so happy and so honored to have District Attorney of Fresno County, Lisa Smittcamp, with us. Boy, this hour's going by fast. We'll be right back. Don't you go away. I'll come and get you. I'll get out of Lisa's bonnet, and I'm up there, and I'll jump out, and I'll come after you. See you in a bit.
Everybody call it poke salad.
Hey, Lisa, you there?
I'm here.
Yeah, when we come back. Oh, you're still live on Facebook, by the way. They can hear you and everything.
Okay.
On social media, YouTube and everything. When we come back, we're going to go in that Prop 47 because it just seems like every individual I talk to that's in law enforcement, in mostly an administrative position, but also the rank and file cops talk about it a lot as well. is this Prop 47 and the aspects of it that have just structurally either tied the hands or made it of prosecutors and judges and the police force, but in some cases just made it impossible to keep the streets safe with this, the way it's written now. So I just want to get your opinion on that, and also that AB 109. I don't want to get real deep in the weeds, but if you can just express how you feel on that, that'd be great. We'll go off that.
They're in combination too, but yeah, I'll make it real brief.
Yeah, that's what Kurt. Well, you get your point. You're right. This is great. By the way, people need to hear this, and I know folks on Facebook, we're getting emails like crazy, and they love what you're saying, and they support you. And you know what gets me? We're talking about these neighborhoods. You know as well as I, as mayor, I went into the quote unquote poor neighborhoods all the time. Riverdale is totally a poor neighborhood I grew up in, and you find the vast majority of the people want the police there. They want to get rid of the bad cops, like we all do.
Sure.
But I wonder, are they intimidated in elections when you get these radicals come forward? Do they stay home? Do they not show up? Because I feel with every fiber of my body, if they showed up at the polls, you would not get people like Gascon, this Chelsea Boudin up in San Francisco.
Boudin, yeah.
Certainly not the Kim Fox in Chicago, and a lot of folks in Chicago in the poor neighborhoods there. And I just wonder what's going on there. I mean, if you talk about voter suppression, do the gangs, do the lawbreakers, do they pay people not to show up at the polls? Something's going on there. Because to get these people elected, and when you look at it, you see a fraction of a turnout, on some of these positions.
Yeah, I do. I think there's a lot of issues going on. There's a lot of voter fraud that goes on. I think there's a lot of ballot harvesting that's very difficult to prove. And I also think that the average American voter is simply just uneducated. Mm-hmm. And sadly, campaigns are now run like marketing. They're like, it's almost like an advertising, like marketing schemes, right?
Right.
There is no requirement for truth in advertisement during a political campaign. Yeah. So people are sold a bill of goods oftentimes, and they do. American voters vote for people who are attractive, people who are the same sex as they are, people who are the same.
We're coming back on there right now, Lisa. We're coming on right now.
Okay.
Get that.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX.
And welcome back to Alan Autry, No Retreat. Why do we call it No Retreat? Because we will never retreat from the basic principles that made this country the greatest country in the world, and that's God, family, and love of country. We're with Lisa Smittcamp, District Attorney, Fresno County. We have a very informative interview going on, so we're going to get right back to it. Lisa, I've talked to a lot of public safety officials throughout the years since Proposition 47, a well-intentioned proposition when you look at it on its surface, but in many ways this proposition has been a wolf in sheep's clothing, has it not, in terms of reducing crime?
Absolutely. I've been against Prop 47 since it was drafted and it was passed, and not because I'm insensitive or I don't believe in rehabilitation, because I do. And I think, just like so many other things that come through the proposition process in our state, is that many good people who were well-intentioned voted for Prop 47 because of the ballot title.
It
was called Safe Schools and Neighborhoods.
They got me, Lisa.
And
they got me. I voted for it. I'll come out and tell you, I voted for it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
They got me. You know what? And I didn't do my homework. I didn't do my homework. No, that's
right.
I'm right up there. I raised my hand.
That just goes to show you that, really good people voted for Prop 47 because on its face it sounded great. The untruths of Prop 47 were that the California District Attorneys Association actually sued the state of California over the ballot title. And then Attorney General Kamala Harris was the person who wrote an amicus brief and said, no, the ballot title is fine. she knew from being a prosecutor and being an attorney, you shouldn't have to have law read the ballot and to understand propositions. You should be able to as just an informed citizen, make an informed and educated choice. But the problems with Prop 47, from my perspective as a prosecutor for 25 years, is that most of the benefits, if you will, that they purported were going to be, happening for people who were just down on their luck or made a bad decision and committed a crime of possession of methamphetamine or stealing items under $950, was that there were already provisions in the law which allowed for sometimes dismissal and sometimes reductions from felonies to misdemeanors, depending on factual circumstances. But all of those remedies were already available. Now, did they have to be earned? Yes. So if you were caught with methamphetamine or cocaine and you were charged with a felony, you had to earn your dismissal by participating in a drug court and submitting clean urine tests and not being involved in criminal activity or drug possession again for a period of 18 months. And you could earn that. Or if you had a bad criminal history, you could earn a reduction from a felony to a misdemeanor. So all of those systems were already in place. And when Prop 47 came out, it was sold to the voters that police and prosecutors, all they want to do is lock up poor drug users. People who are down on their luck.
Right.
And so that, I think, really, Alan, is the inherent problem, is that campaigns, because when a proposition is on the ballot, it means it couldn't get through the Assembly or the Senate, right? So it had to go to a proposition. And when a proposition is done, it's almost like running a political campaign. And I think that's the problem with the way that we vote today, is voters who are informed are not always given the truth. There is no truth in advertising, if you will, requirement when you run a political campaign. I mean, I know that from my own political campaign. There were things said about me in commercials that were just not true.
Right.
And the only way to counter those are to come out with, another nasty gram saying this person's lying to you, and calling them out. And it just gets to be a really ugly process, which is why I say all the time, and sometimes I'm criticized for this, I don't like politics. And people say, well, you're a politician. And I say, I'm really not. I'm a prosecutor who has to run for office. Mm-hmm. Because when you get into the politics, it's dirty, all of it. It's the local level, the state level, and the federal level. It's dirty.
Yeah, I look back at that decision to vote for it. I thought at that time that the drug sentencing to go to rehab, to get treatment rather than incarceration, was going to be mandatory. Then I find out later, very naively, it was a stupid thing to do. I should have just not voted at all. And I had this, kind of inkling in my stomach. I said, I'm really making this decision. Do I know enough about it? And for some reason, I went ahead and voted for it. And man, it's been one of my biggest regrets, because there's so many holes in that. Because I know, I know the mind of an addict. I was hooked on cocaine and alcohol for 8 years. Never been in rehab. Never been arrested. Should have been both. And I know that I wasn't going to get help. Yeah. I was. Well, then, Alan, you're not going to get unless you're forced to. You're forced to go get treatment. Very few are going to say, "Yeah, okay. Oh, I don't have to. You're just encouraging me." The heck no, they're just going to go back out on the street, keep doing what they're doing.
Right, and that's the thing. So for people who are informed, and whether through your work or personal involvement with someone in your family or yourself, there are phases to drug use, right? Everyone starts off a recreational user. Nobody does their first line of meth or coke thinking, oh, I'm going to become an addict and I'm going to ruin my life.
Right.
So you go from that great euphoric use of drugs, whatever they are, to then you get into the place where you're not stopping and you go into the abuse phase. And when people ask me, how do you know if you're a drug abuser? Well, your spouse starts to suffer. Your relationships with your children, your job, everything starts to kind of go sideways, and your priorities become the drug or the alcohol versus the people or your responsibilities. And then when you get into full-blown addiction, that's when you're really in trouble. You're getting a divorce, you're getting fired, you wake up every day and that's all you want, and you will steal, beg, borrow, lie, or whatever for that drug. And there are a lot of people in the process of that continuum from recreational fun use all the way to full-blown addiction that have intervening things that happen to them, whether it's a pastor or a parent or a boss. Somebody will come along, and everyone has a different bottom. For some people, that bottom is the criminal justice system. And Prop 47 disallowed the criminal justice system from becoming the bottom for an addict.
That's a good point.
Because there are a lot of people who will tell you that night in jail or that weekend in jail or that 6 months in jail was the end for me. That's when I knew. That's where I finally got sober, because I couldn't use anymore. I couldn't manipulate anymore, and that's when I got clean.
Yeah.
And so they have taken that ability away. And the other thing that's horrific about Prop 47 is it promised all of this money to all these counties because they were going to save so much money by not incarcerating people anymore. Well, guess what? Guess how many dollars Fresno County has received as a result of Prop 47 funding? That would be zero. And most counties have, I don't know any counties that have received money.
Wow.
So what has happened is not only have they removed the ability to help people reach their bottom so that they can get the treatment that they need, but they put no money into resources. They put no money into treatment. We have increased the number of inpatient beds in this state in years. They're just not with no help at all available through addiction recovery or prosecutorial or law enforcement recovery. You know, you have this population of people, and so what do you have? You have these people wandering aimlessly around the streets of every city. I mean, there used to only be homeless, big homeless problems in major cities. Now they're everywhere. They're in Fresno, they're in Merced, Modesto, even small towns, and everyone says, how does this happen? Well, how does it happen? Most people who, and our state and our counties and our cities have done a great job. Mayor Dyer has done an amazing job with homelessness here in Fresno in the short year that he's been the mayor. But we still have a problem because we still have more addicts. And most people who are on the street, people say, oh, we have a housing crisis. No, we have a drug crisis, because most of the people who are homeless, who are not being housed, are there because they either are mentally ill, caused by dual diagnoses from not just mental illness, but mental illness that's exacerbated by drug addiction and drug addiction.
Correct. Yep. We're involved in a ministry out dealing with the homeless right at the ground level. Absolutely correct, Lisa, 100%. And if you have to address it as such, because even if you provide housing, those folks are going to be out on the street. There's a difference between street people and homeless. A lot of street folks, have a place to go sleep, but they come out on the streets, to panhandle. That's where they make their money. It's where they get their drugs. So unless you address it head on, you're not going to get anywhere. The old saying, truth will set you free, but first it'll make you miserable. And that's the miserable truth. And we have to start facing that if we want to make a true dent in that. And let me just make a real quick comment. I know some folks probably got surprised when I just expressed my experience 8 years in Hollywood there, where I was a bad drug and alcohol problem that progressed, just like Lisa said, from one year to the next. And why would I admit such? Because there's no record of it. The only record of it is etched in my heart and my soul forever, is that I made a little deal with God to be delivered from that I would, whenever I was in a situation that I felt like it helped somebody, maybe dealing with drug and alcohol abuse, and my story could be of help to them, that I was going to share that. Because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the intervention of God at a little ditch bank outside of town, 22 miles from here, 35 years ago, delivered me from losing alcohol. So I mean, I made that when I ran for mayor. That was an open, I brought it up. You didn't have to go down to Hollywood to find the dealer or whatever. It's not something that I'm proud of, but it's something that is so much a part of who I am today and who I was back then. And that ministry came above even being elected as mayor. That would have cost me the election. So be it. Not trying to be some John Wayne martyr about it. Just want to share the truth, because I know some people were probably surprised to hear me say that. Lisa, we're going to take, this hour, I told you it's going by fast. When we come back, I would like you to comment on how a district attorney makes a decision to move forward with a prosecution. You see a lot of tension sometimes between police chiefs and DAs. Police chief may think that they have enough evidence. The DA has to hey, no, I can't go to court because I can't win this, and kind of give us a look into the life of the DA and how those decisions are made, and sometimes how difficult they can be. This is Alan Autry, No Retreat, with District Attorney Lisa Smittcamp, and we're going to be right back. Good stuff, Lisa. Good stuff. People are getting educated. I know folks here online are eating this up like with a big spoon.
A lot of static on the line.
Yeah, you got a static from me. We got static from you too. Jose, is there anything we can do on our end? No, it just is what it is there. You hear me better or no?
That's a little bit
better. Yeah, you go in and out as well. Sorry about that, Lisa. When you come back, we'll just do another, about 7-minute segment, then I'll let you go.
Good.
Thank you. Appreciate you so much giving her your time. I know you're a busy person.
A little bit.
Yeah, just a tad. Just a tad.
Lots of irons in the fire.
Man, I tell you, it's that's a tough job being in law enforcement in any capacity nowadays. My goodness. It's
yeah, we're swimming upstream for sure.
Man. But I sense the tide turning. I really think people have had enough of this woke far left, including my liberal brethren. I think they're standing up. You see it on the media.
Well, Alan, since 2018, I've been trying to say the same thing. This is not an R&D blue and red thing.
Right.
When you talk about public safety, you need to talk about accountability and responsibility, because dealing with criminals oftentimes is like dealing with children. If you don't give children structure and rules, most of the time they'll run amok, right?
Yep.
because we're human beings and we want to get away with whatever we can and do sometimes, have the most fun and the least amount of work. But when you really challenge people to be better human beings, to stay in school, to be educated, they don't have to go to Harvard and get a law degree or a medical degree, but learn a trade. Learn how to work hard for an honest wage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get out there and learn something. Be a productive citizen. My dad used to always tell me, accomplishment breeds confidence, and accomplishment breeds accomplishment. So when you feel good about yourself and you feel good about the things that you've done in the day, you want to get up the next day and do more.
Right.
And then you want to help others, right? Be better.
Exactly.
And really, I think that's the sort of culture that we've lost here in our state and our nation. It's not a Fresno thing. It's not a poverty thing. It's just an all around. We need a revamping of our value system. I
think you're absolutely correct. It all stems back to that. It stems back to virtues. Are virtues appreciated, exalted in your society or not? Is honesty, hard work, fairness, character? It doesn't mean anything, and if that erodes, bit by bit, so does, respect for anything, including the law. I agree with you 100%. That's why this woke far left is just
10 seconds.
About 10 seconds. Okay. Going back on the
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX.
And welcome back to Alan Autry, No Retreat. I love this song. Thank you, Jose. Reminds me of those old cotton fields I used to work in. I actually picked cotton, folks. Probably one of the few people walking the planet. My mom made me a little cotton sack about 3 foot long, and I got to go out in the cotton fields with her when I was 7, 8 years old. Picked me some cotton. Didn't like it. Knew right then I didn't want to pick cotton for the rest of my life. Looking back, maybe that's why she did it. Maybe that's why she made me that cotton sack. We're with Lisa Smittcamp. We just got a few minutes left with Lisa. So thankful that she's given of her time to visit with us on the issue of crime. And Lisa, we talked about getting into decisions of prosecuting. But first, in our limited time, let me ask you this instead, and then we can get to that if we have enough time. Is there mandatory minimum still around?
So mandatory minimums is usually a term we hear in the federal system. California has a sentencing structure that's called a sentencing triad. So for cases, so the that people can be sentenced to for definite terms. For let's say a domestic violence case, so 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. If you have enhancements for weapons or great bodily injury, then those can be added. For second-degree murder, we have something called an indeterminate term, which is 15 to life. First-degree murder is 25 to life. So the judge will sentence them, and then on those quote-unquote life terms, oftentimes it is up to the parole board when people are actually let out. And what has happened in California is through the process of passing legislation by these legislators in the Assembly and the Senate, who you call, they're not even, I don't even like to call them Democrats either, because, Alan, I was raised by Democrats. My dad was a union leader. My mom is a Democrat still to this day. And so, it's not just Democrats. It's the woke. It's the left of the left of the left of the left. And they have passed laws for elder and youthful offender parole. We have Prop 57, which we probably don't have time to talk about today, that allows for the release, of people much before their time is served. And we have this constant revolving door with this overarching political mindset of closing prisons, which is Governor Brown's goal, which is Governor Newsom's goal. This is what we get. And so you have all of these things that are sort of done underhandedly. They don't become public because there is also that influence from the media. And the average citizen has no idea why all of these people are coming out of prison before they're doing their time. And that's another huge factor as to why we have this perfect storm for anarchy and chaos, and we are in this public safety crisis, is because of the prison system in California, which is, quite honestly, in my very humble opinion, a complete disaster.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. Lisa, is the 1020 life law still in effect?
It is.
Here's what gets me. I did the original commercial for that. It was the Mike Reynolds proposition he put together. For those of you who may not know who Mike Reynolds is, he was the author behind 3 Strikes You're Outlaw, which was put in effect here in California. Then pretty much every state in the union put their own version into law. Mike's daughter, Kimber Reynolds, was killed out in the Tower District by a guy named Joe Davis, in and out of prison, I think 20 times. Should have never been out on the streets. Just similar in the early 90s to what we're going through now, just letting these folks out who are clearly violent. But I did this commercial, and this is the law, folks, here in California. If you use a gun in the commission of a crime, you correct me if I'm wrong on this, Lisa, it may have changed, I hope it hasn't, but if you use a gun in the commission of a crime, it's 10 years. You fire that gun, whether it hits anybody or not, it's 20. If you fire the gun and it hits somebody, whether they die or not, it's life. And I'm thinking to myself, most people don't know that law is in effect because, you look again at the Tower District just the other day, and I know a guy just came out and opened fire, wounded 4 people. Now, if that guy knew, just by pulling that gun, he's facing 10 years. Don't you think if people knew, like you're saying, the awareness, people seem to not know what's out there, but are DAs willing to prosecute? Are judges willing to sentence? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, the thing with the 1020 life is you're right on the numbers and you're right on the facts. And 1020 life is an enhancement, so it's not an actual crime itself.
See.
It's an enhancement to
That's
certain enumerated crimes. It doesn't apply to every crime. It only applies according to the code to certain crimes. So you can use the 1020 life enhancement, and it's a 25 to life, right? So they did market it under, to try to let people understand, use a gun and you're done, they called it, or 1020 life.
Yes, use the gun and you're absolute. Now, Lisa, is that kind of what's going? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying it by itself is not a crime. It is an enhancement, a gun enhancement to other crimes.
Right. So is that kind of what's going on in L.A.? This Gascon will not use enhancements against the murder on the 48-year-old businesswoman, African-American.
Exactly.
There. Is that what?
Exactly.
And now the community's coming up.
He's not alleging enhancements. And under Prop 57, which is, the nightmare that happened after Prop 47, that law allows the Board of Parole to recalculate sentences that people have been convicted of by juries or plea, and to recalculate them, just completely discarding all of the enhancements, the strike priors, and basically letting them out after they do their principal term.
Lisa, let me ask you, we just got a few minutes left. I know, folks, this individual we're talking to right now pretty well. We consider ourselves friends. I know her well enough to know this. I know her heart. And you heard the story about the young man that she brought into her home. I know Lisa Smittcamp, this DA, and I think it's true of many DAs across the country, not this far left stuff, but that genuinely care about people. And I know me as a mayor, I felt the same way because I hired a police chief. He had to be tough on crime. But we would love nothing better, and I know DA Smittcamp would love nothing better, that the young man or woman who would never, that wish they never put down the gun in the book and picked up the gun and come up and hurt someone and kill someone. But you raise your right hand as a mayor, a city councilman, a DA, supervisor, to protect the innocent people, the law-abiding citizens. And if the criminal element, particularly the violent criminal element, decides to break that covenant with the people and inflict harm, and in many cases death, on people, there has to be consequences. And here's my question with that setup. Knowing your heart, come on. Do you see any way out of the mess we're in now unless you, quote, unquote, get tough on violent crime?
Absolutely not. And it's not just violent crime. It's the underlying issues that are causing violent crime. It's the sense of entitlement. It's the lack of regard for human life. It's the fact that children are not being raised to work hard. They're not being told by anybody that it's important to, as we were talking at the break, my dad used to tell me all the time, hard work breeds accomplishment. Accomplishment breeds confidence. And then accomplishment breeds accomplishment. And we don't have that in our society anymore. And there's nothing that's valiant about getting up and working in the fields or getting up and working a minimum wage job. My daughter was working at a local restaurant that served fish. And she was 15 years old with a little work permit, and it was one of the poke restaurants. And people said to me, "Oh my gosh, your daughter works in a place where she scoops fish." And I said, "You're dang right she does, because she's going to learn how to work."
Yeah, absolutely.
And my son has cleaned golf carts at a golf course. Anywhere they can get a job, and I think that's what we really are missing today.
But,
and so do I think there's a way out? Yes, but not an easy way out, because it's a cultural thing for all of us in the United States of America today. We need to re-examine our values and really put stock in hard work and education and good old-fashioned American values where people worked for what they had. They didn't expect to be given things. And does everyone need a helping hand every once in a while? Absolutely. But there has to be a point in time where we say we have to start looking at our morals and our values.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. As we turn our attention, very far down the road than we should have gone before we turn back to those values you just talked about. We are where we are, but to commit to turn around as a society and invest in those type of attitudes to exalt the hard work and the concept of God, that there's a higher authority holding us accountable for our actions. All those strong things have made America strong and basically a law-abiding country. But things have gotten so out of control that the violent criminals seem to be emboldened. And I remember, when they would let the folks out of prison, Lisa, and I would go speak to them a lot, and several hundred at a time. And I told them, I said, look, if you're coming back to Fresno and you're looking to change your ways, I just started a gang initiative. We funded it with almost $2 million. You need second chance education, we'll help you with it. You need tattoo removal, we'll help you with it. You need mental health treatment, we'll help you with all of these things. If you're looking to start a new life and not partake in the activities that got you in prison, we're going to help you here in Fresno. But if you choose to go back to your own ways, you choose to go back to particularly your violent ways, if you were in there for a violent offense, you're going to find me, the mayor, and the city of Fresno, the most inhospitable place on the face of the earth. We're not going to put up with it. And I never heard, I had people tell me, Alan, they're going to come after you. Even one of my assistants said that was, I said, no, I don't believe so. I'm not worried about that one bit. I never got any repercussions of that, but I got a lot of feedback from those prisoners, those people coming out. And I actually have lost count on at least 10, 15 times. I have instances where I've run into these folks over the course of the year and say, I was at that meeting when you were there, and that was what I needed to hear. I needed to hear you say that the hammer was coming down. You have to have hammer and hope. And that's my point, Lisa, is I think we have to send that for even the good of the potential criminal. That, they're in a phase in their life, maybe they're on drugs or whatever. And you tell them, look, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that as a child, that your dad was abusive, that you had all these horrible things happen to you. Genuinely, my heart breaks for you, but we can't tolerate what you're about to do. We can't tolerate this violent behavior. And if you do participate in it, we're going to come after you. So I just think that's where we are now. Unfortunately, we've let our values erode, that we've got so much of this criminal element taking advantage of the lax systems that we have in place. Judges not handing out the long enough sentences. DAs not one to prosecute outside of you. And I tell you, and I want to end with this. I want to give you what gives you the courage, because you're just unabashed. You're not some blowhard out there. You're just, you come forward, but you say, listen, this is what I believe. You're not going to commit crime in this city, in this county, without impunity. We're coming after you. What gives you the strength and courage to pretty much stand up against the prevailing attitude out there right now?
Interesting you say that. I think number one, it's the fact of how I was raised. My dad was a union leader, and my mom was a very strong, feisty lady from New York, and she was not allowed to go to college. Her father told her she didn't have any business going to college. She didn't need to go to college. She was just going to get married and have kids. And so my whole life I was empowered by my parents. And my mom is such a strong role model to me that, she would tell us when we were little kids, every day when you wake up, you have the responsibility given to you by God to try to do something small to make the world a better place. So that's how I was raised. And as I've come along the path, I've been very fortunate to have supportive family members and supportive friends. And quite honestly, Alan, every single day I wake up and I say my morning prayers. Sometimes they're 30 seconds long, but I just say, God, have me do your will today. And I feel like that's what empowers me, and that's what protects me. There's a lot of people that don't like Lisa Smittcamp in the world, and there's a lot of people that have threatened me. And, it's difficult to be in law enforcement today, especially in the public eye. But I feel like it's not hard. I think we're getting ready to celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday here in January, and it's not hard. As Martin Luther King used to say, it's not hard to do the right thing. And that's just what it is every single day. It's a blessing for me to be in this position and to have this position. I'm at the end of my career. I've been in this for 25 years. By the grace of God, I have healthy children who also are supportive of my endeavors and a supportive family. So I just push on every single day. And I think the reason that I'm able to be so bold and so outspoken is because I don't need this job. I want this job. I don't have to work. I am so fortunate, that my husband was very successful in his business, and I've been doing this for years and was taught to save money, and so I could retire and be very happy at this point in my life, and not change my lifestyle one single bit, because I have worked for the county for over 25 years and I have a good retirement. So now I'm in it because I want to be in it. I'm in it because I care. I'm in it because I'm passionate. And honestly, I had the opportunity to lead the most amazing department in the county. We have the most dedicated people here at the district attorney's office, and to get to work, hand in hand and side by side with law enforcement officers and law enforcement officials in this community is a true privilege to me. And I have to, before we get off the air here, I have to just compliment you on appointing Jerry Dyer to be the police chief, because I will tell you, I very rarely like to say anything in front of him that will prompt his already big ego to get any bigger.
He's a good man.
He was such a great chief and such a blessing to this community, and he has helped helped us in so many regards with race relations and just making the law enforcement community open to know that we are part of this community. We are not in ivory towers, and we do really care. And he set that tone for us all.
Well, he's a good man, and I tell you, Lisa, those words you just said, quoting O.G.L. Johnson, former pastor, may God rest his soul, if that doesn't get your fire burning and your woods wet. Lisa Smittcamp, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you so much. Keep up the good fight, as Apostle Paul said. And folks, thank you for tuning in. God bless you. God bless your families. And God bless the United States of America. And good Lord willing, creek don't rise. We'll get a chance to do it tomorrow on Friday. Love y'all. Bye-bye now. Lisa.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll let you go.
Thank you.
That went by so fast. We got a ton of emails coming in, and just, I love you, girl. God bless you.
Good. Love you too.
Okay.
You take good care, and Happy New Year. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, but we got the better end of that deal. Thanks, Lisa.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Folks, I got to get going too. God bless you for tuning in. We got something going here on Facebook and social media. Starting to really grow, this our little show. And I say ours because it's absolutely our show. And my Sue show, as they say. And just appreciate you so much. We don't claim to be some polished radio show. We're just some concerned people that love our country, love our God, love our families, and just trying to be better people each day. And trying to hopefully together, collectively, by discussing difficult subjects in a very respectful way, to disagree without being disagreeable. That doesn't mean you don't get passionate. Absolutely passionate. I think we're doing our part on this little show. I'd like you to say you're part of old Autry's army, if you will, that I'm no greater or more exalted than any of you all out there. Because without us together, working together on this, it just doesn't work. I do think we have something special. I know I look forward to it every day that I can make it in here. It's the highlight of my day to be able to be with you. So God bless you, love you, and remember, whatever you're going through, this too shall